being here, it feels like an umbilical cord to the roots of this teaching. It doesn't go away, but there's something very special, as those of you who've been here know. There's something very special about being here in Myanmar, where these teachings have been shared and practiced for millennia, a long time. And when one starts a retreat in Myanmar, one always begins a retreat with ethical conduct, sila, chanting the precepts, chanting the refuges, and the homage to the Buddha.
Can you say them again, one after the other, Sister Viranani?
Sure. The homage to the Buddha, the three refuges, and the precepts. And they are a practice in themselves that we do all day long, you know. So they are a natural link between what we do on our cushions and what we do in our regular life. And they are a beautification of the heart. And this is something that we don't tend to think about when we think about meditation practice, but beautification.
You mean beautification, from beauty, not purity.
And our society spends a lot of energy and time dealing with beautification of the body, but very little time dealing with beautification of the heart. But what good is a beautiful body with an awful heart? Not that any of us here have awful hearts, but we want to make the heart even more beautiful. So I want to formally start the retreat by chanting the homage, the refuges, and the 5 basic lay precepts. Please join as you can on your own, in your own space, making sure your microphone's off. That's an important Zoom thing. And what we're chanting is, as I said, a practice. So what we're chanting is to refrain from, to undertake the training to refrain from harming living beings, taking what isn't given, stealing, any harmful sexual activity, speaking untruths, lying, and then taking any intoxicants that cloud the mind. And what this last one basically means is recreational drugs. And I'm sorry to say, for those of you who like wine, alcohol. Because these precepts are trainings, expect to fail, either in a subtle way or a gross way. So maybe you notice you exaggerated in your speech, and it's not completely true, but it's sort of true. That's a subtle slip. Or you basically just look at that bottle of wine and say, no, I'm going to have a glass of wine, never mind. And that's a less subtle slip. So whether the slip is subtle or gross, the practice is exactly the same as whenever you find your mind is wandered in meditation. You just start again. That's all. It's very simple. Without judging yourself, without feeling ashamed of yourself, without any guilt, you just start again. That's all. I want to share a story before we chant about a dear friend here that some of you know, who've been here. And quite a long time ago, she taught me how to hold the precepts in a way that's pure, but not tight. So this is Mimi, our translator here at the monastery, who some of you know very well. And it's a Burmese thing on the observance days, the full moon, the new moon, and the half moons, for everybody to take 8 precepts, which involves dressing simply, practicing meditation, and not eating after the noon meal. So Mimi, along with everybody else at the monastery, before the Dhamma talk in the afternoon, had taken the 8 precepts. And some hours later, it would have been about this time of day, she went to the dining room where some of the helpers were having their dinner and started eating dinner. And I said to her, Mimi, you took 8 precepts. What are you doing? Full of judgment. I was really kind of, And she just looked at me and she said, well, I took the 8 precepts. I knew I wouldn't be able to hold them well because I'm not feeling so well. But for those hours, I held the precepts, and that's better than nothing. And she's right. However much energy you have to hold the precepts, hold them however you can, and that's good. And for whatever reason you break a precept, intentionally or unintentionally, whenever you realize you've done that, simply start again. There's no pressure here. I spend so much time talking about this because first, the precepts are really important as a foundation of the practice and as a metta and compassion practice by themselves. And also to relieve the pressure of having to do it perfectly. I think a lot of us in the West don't like the precepts because we take them as a rule that we have to follow. And it's not like that. So just use them as a bridge to connect your practice on the cushion and your everyday life. Really pay attention to them in a light but dedicated way. And this will both build your compassion muscle, but it also provides a foundation for good practice. Because in addition to being a bridge and a practice in themselves, the precepts create a pure field, a pure energy field of mind and heart. And the purer our hearts, the deeper the concentration can be, the easier the practice is. So I wanted to say all of that before we begin to chant the homages, the refuges, and the precepts, just to give you the context for why they're so important. As my preceptor Upandita always used to say, now you are adorned with the garland of sila, beautification of heart. And it's a source of happiness. It's just such a joy to do that together. And I encourage you to take the precepts every day. Before the Dhamma talk, we will be chanting them, and to really take them on as a practice, a joyful practice, a happy practice, a precious practice.
Yeah, aiuto.
It's especially obvious right now in the world how precious this is and how important it is. If everybody held these simple precepts, the world would be a really different place. But not everybody does, so we need to practice compassion. So in this retreat, we will be focusing on compassion. Of course, because this is a Karuna retreat, we will be inclining to compassion over and over. But we don't have to make it up, as we say in English, out of whole cloth. We don't have to make it up out of nothing.
Sorry?
We don't have to make it up from nothing. We don't have to construct it, because it's already there in our hearts. This is a human capacity that is quite natural. So it's just a matter of uncovering it and inclining to it. I really love what Pema Chodron says about compassion in this respect. So she says, your courage and capacity for compassion is already in you. It's merely a matter of clearing the way. And because I used to love to garden, I have this image when I think of clearing the way of clearing a vegetable garden that has gone to seed for a long time. So clearing the grass and the blackberries and all the weeds that have, choked it. And under all that is soil that we plant seeds in and grow a vegetable garden. It just takes a little work. We just have to do the weeding. So that's what we'll be doing this week, is clearing the ground and planting compassion seeds. It's the best thing ever. So there are a number of different things that we develop when we do this, that we polish when we do this, and that we uncover when we do this. So this whole week is about learning to be with suffering, our own and other people's. And what is required for this is a particular attitude that we develop that really recognizes common humanity. And we polish and develop our capacity for connection, this ability to get out of our individual bubble of self-centeredness. And this requires and further develops mindfulness, awareness. This is the third thing. And however we manage to do it, then the task is to bring this into action, into our lives, to integrate this. So all of these work very closely together in the practice. And each of them is important in its own way. I'll have more to say tomorrow in the Dhamma talk, about it, but very briefly, I wanted to, in a sentence or two, just in a couple of words, speak about Karuna. All you need to know right now, is that it is that aspect of metta, of loving kindness, that inclines to suffering. So it's the same thing you're all very used to in the metta practice, but it's focused in more closely on pain, suffering, distress. And we'll begin very practically today with a little bit of introductory practice until tomorrow morning with metta / compassion practice for ourselves. This is totally not the series of categories that is in the Visuddhimagga. We don't start with ourselves in compassion practice generally. However, we as Westerners most of us here are Westerners, and even if we're not, we may be conditioned to judge ourselves, to not accept certain aspects of ourselves, to not accept suffering. And it's critically important that we be able to do this before we can radiate compassion for others. Even a little, it doesn't have to be a lot, but so long as you have a little bit of a taste of this. And quite frankly, it's a way to start gently, because all of you who've done the metta practice know how bumpy it can get. Compassion can be the same, but magnified. Maybe not. I mean, people are different, but for some people, this can be quite a challenging practice. So I want to start very gently. So we'll start with, until tomorrow morning, simple compassion practice for yourself. And the reason I said earlier, I'm so happy to see all of you who are familiar faces having done a lot of metta practice, is that traditionally intensive compassion practice requires a good grounding in metta. So this is kind of a review that we'll be doing of your metta skills. So the Karuna practice is done in exactly the same way as the metta practice, where we connect with the heart, and then we begin to radiate compassion with a simple phrase in your own language. And this phrase, of course, will differ a little bit from the metta phrase because it focuses more on suffering. And just like with the metta phrase, don't worry about getting the perfect phrase. There's no such thing. It just needs to be a phrase that you can connect with. If you know yourself well enough to know that you might drown in difficult emotions, if you tend to be quite emotional when faced with suffering, go lightly with this. So, for example, a gentle version of the compassion phrase might sound like, may I be at ease with this suffering, which you might recognize as a basic metta phrase, may I be at ease, adding in that little bit with suffering. So to turn the mind toward the suffering. Often when we say, oh, may I be at ease, it implies there is something difficult happening, but this is more specific. And suffering that when we speak of suffering, it can be unimportant suffering. Like right now, for example, I have no electricity and I am profusely sweating because it's really hot. It's miserable. So that's a form of suffering, but it's not very important. It's not a big deal. And on the other end of the spectrum, of course, there is really intense suffering of illness, of injury, of life events. So if you know yourself and you know you tend to drown in sorrow when faced with suffering, focus on the trivial suffering and use that simple phrase, may I be at ease with this. If you know that you can, go a little more into suffering, you can use a different phrase. So for example, may I be free from all kinds of suffering, or simply may I be free from suffering. That's a very simple phrase. Or you can be more specific. May I be free from mental and physical suffering. I really like that because it focuses both on the physical, our bodies, and the ways our bodies can cause us pain, and the mental, our emotional life, our inner life, the way we can be in pain, in heart pain. So finding a simple phrase that, captures this well-wishing that inclines to suffering. for yourself. And especially if you have any particular difficulty in your life right now that's intense, I would recommend, even if you're quite resolute, to stay with the gentle end of things. And regardless of what phrase you choose, if you find yourself getting into difficulty that looks like grief, self-pity, which is quite toxic, or some of the strong emotion, feel free to back off and go to the gentler version of the phrase, or go simply to metta without any specific inclination to suffering. So I'd like to get started together with a short sitting together right now. So just as with the metta practice, please relax, find a comfortable posture, and know that if there is pain in the body, please feel free to move. When you're ready, closing your eyes and taking a couple of breaths, just feeling this body right now and right here. Seeing if you can deeply relax around all sorts of sensations, whether they be pleasant or unpleasant, and really beginning this compassion practice with some minutes of very gentle, receptive awareness of what it is to live in this body right now. Paying attention and really letting in any difficult, painful sensations of mind or body. Gently but firmly allowing yourself to feel. There may be unpleasant bodily sensations. That's okay. The body does this sometimes. Seeing if you can rest back in an attitude of friendly, kind awareness. Really beginning by connecting with this here and now. Gently touching with awareness this experience of being in a body, breathing into the experience, relaxing into the experience. When you feel connected with being here now, beginning to radiate compassion with the phrase you've chosen. So gently connecting with the heart, and there, if it helps you really discern that general area of the body. And dropping in the phrase as you would plant a seed in soil. May I be free of mental and physical suffering. May I be at ease with the suffering in my life. Finding the phrase that works for you in your own language and continuing the practice in the same way as you would with metta practice. Connect with the heart, repeat the phrase, feeling the resonance of that, and really taking your time with this. Taking as much time as you need to connect with yourself and to connect with the phrase as you repeat it, understanding the meaning of what you are wishing for yourself. So we'll continue in the silence, moment to moment, inclining to wishing well in the face of difficulty. So coming to a close of this very short sit together. Of course, as you know, with the schedule, there is more time to come here to this space to sit together later today. And so your instructions for the next, not 24 hours, but until tomorrow morning when we meet together again, is to continue with this Karuna practice for yourself. Informal sitting meditation, informal walking meditation, and in general activities. And in general activities, please feel free to allow the heart to open to compassion to whomever it spontaneously inclines. So you may be with other people or other beings, maybe your cats and dogs, as well as other people in your family. So if you are in the same space with them, you may find the mind spontaneously going, oh, may you be, or may we together be free from mental and physical suffering, or whatever your phrase is. In general activities, please do not try to stop this. Just let it happen. So just do what my friend Ayya calls, free form and metta practice. Just allow the metta to, or the compassion practice, just allow the compassion to go out to whomever it naturally goes. Doing whatever you need to do to incline as much as you can towards compassion, moment to moment to moment. Please don't make a project of this or try to do it perfectly. Just whatever you need to do to incline to compassion when you are present and aware that that's what you want to do right now. You know, don't expect every moment without ceasing this inclination. But when you are mindful that this is the practice you are doing, do the practice. And when you realize you've forgotten the practice for seconds or minutes or hours, that's okay. Just start again, just like with the precepts. And really bring this compassion practice into body care. So bathing, putting the body to bed, these are specific compassion practices already. So really making that very clear when you do that. And eating. May I be free from suffering. So does anybody have any practical questions about the practice itself, not so much about the theory, which I will talk about tomorrow, but more about the specifics of the practice? If you do, please put your kind of virtual hand up so that we can see it on the screen. So nobody has any questions. That's either a good or a bad sign. So really encouraging you in the practice to really find the tenderness of this. Compassion practice has a different flavor than metta practice, and it's very tender. And there's a real sweetness to it that acknowledges our common humanity and our common, we're all travelers in this land of difficulty. Everybody suffers.
C'è
And it's a
questa
very, very tender thing to touch. Thank you for your practice, everybody. Please continue through the day and tomorrow morning until our group's sitting together. And I have the luxury of 8 whole minutes to to do some chanting, which I love to do.
raise the hand.
Alessandra, yes, thank you.
So I was I was prompted to ask the question because of what you said about this attitude of tenderness, what you said, the last sentence you said before. So I started with the phrase, may I be free of suffering, physical and mental suffering. And then I tried the other sentence, the other phrase, may I be at ease with this suffering, in order that I'd be able to find what the phrase that was resonating better for me in this moment. When I say the phrase, may I be free from physical and mental suffering, I feel it gives me like a taste as if I was trying to run away from suffering, as if I had a goal of not feeling, not being in suffering. Whenever, whereas instead, when I said the phrase, may I be at ease with the suffering, it was I felt as if I was in touch with the inner child, this inner child that needed to be cuddled and comforted. So my body responded, like as if I was hugging myself.
Oh, nice.
So my question is, in order to keep the stability of this contact of Karuna, is it good? Is it okay to start with this sentence, may I be at ease with this suffering, or is it too early?
No, I mean, what you describe is exactly that action of compassion, which is to hold the suffering tenderly. So that's exactly right. Just continue with that phrase. So I wanted to do a little bit of metta chanting. We have now only 2 minutes, so I'll keep it short. I will chant in Burmese, this beautiful chant of metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. So these phrases in Burmese capture a little bit of each. And then we end with a sharing of merit. Thank you, everybody, for your dedicated practice, for joining this retreat. again, warmly welcome. And may all beings in all realms and in all directions be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So please continue with the practice. I'll see you tomorrow morning.